my favorite. Oh, yeah.
That's what made me think of that.
That's so funny. I like couldn't sleep Tuesday night because I was so excited. I know.
Dear Lord, give me strength.
Oh my gosh. I know.
I am in the same spot.
Yeah.
Thanks
Is
for
that the
noticing.
one that Patty Pans and Brooks is?
Maybe, but I could see that. The January 9th State Board of Education meeting will now come to order. Good morning and welcome to the January 9th, 2026 State Board of Education meeting. Board members, please engage your microphones before speaking and turn them off when you're finished speaking. Please note that board members may be using their cell phones and laptop computers to access the agenda and information related to this meeting. Live streaming is available through the State Board of Education website. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Kristen Christensen,
Here.
Maggie Douglas,
Here.
Lisa Schoenhoff,
Here.
Liz Renner, Kirk Penner,
Present.
Sherry Jones,
Here.
Elizabeth Tegmeyer,
Here.
Deborah Neary,
Here.
Commissioner Maher,
Here.
7 present, 1 absent.
Quorum is established. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Information regarding the Open Meetings Act is posted as you enter the room from the main entrance doors. The Open Meetings Act is also posted on the State Board of Education's website. The next item of business is the Commissioner's report. Commissioner Maher, please provide your report.
Thank you, President Tegmeyer. First of all, there are no items that have been identified to be removed from the consent agenda. If board members wish to remove items from the consent agenda, please fill out the form at this time. Any items removed from the consent agenda will be taken up under additional business. Well, good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. It's always a fun time of year with school back in session after a much-needed break. The return of the legislature, of course, bowl season. We have to talk about football a little bit, and so much more. I have a few items I want to update you on, and we'll be soliciting some support from other NDE staff as part of my report this morning. My first item is to give a big shout out to our new Teacher of the Year, Sarah Harden from Mullen. Morning, Sarah. We had so much fun surprising Sarah in her classroom last fall, seems like yesterday, and honoring her and the Excellence in Teaching Award winners just this past December. To introduce Sarah today, I'll ask David Jesperson from our Communications Department to come forward and join us for some brief words.
Good morning, David Jesperson, Administrator, Office of Public Information and Communications, and I have the great pleasure and honor today of introducing our 2026 Teacher of the Year. We had another very successful year in 2026, getting to the point of getting our Teacher of the Year. We had more than 100 nominations again for the second year in a row, and we had a large number of really highly qualified applicants this year. Probably one of the hardest years that we've had, narrowing it down to a final 4, and then choosing Sarah Harden as our Teacher of the Year. Sarah's a high school science teacher at Mullen Public Schools. She is one of 4 finalists for the Teacher of the Year and has been a teacher since 2007, working her entire career in Mullen, teaching science, math, agriculture, and physical education. In the classroom, Sarah strives to give her students involved in excited with hands-on project-based learning, whether it's through guest speakers, community service projects, or building complex machines, her students have a chance to not just learn, but live the lessons. She's currently leading the development of a geothermal greenhouse to engage in even more real-world issues. As the 2026 Teacher of the Year, Hardin wants to inspire both students and teachers to be excited about learning. She believes learning must go beyond memorizing facts and formulas and should spark curiosity, encourage hands-on exploration, and connect to students' diverse experiences and interests. And I think Lisa can attest that she definitely sparked curiosity when we interviewed her for the Teacher of the Year, and she has not disappointed since.
I loved the owl activity, the pellet, the owl pellet. We got to dissect owl pellets. And the way you did it, I loved how you used the actual owl in the video. So kids could actually see it firsthand. I thought that was great.
As Teacher of the Year, Sarah has really already begun her year. It officially starts today, but she already has been reached out to by a number of organizations and teacher colleges to come speak. She'll be traveling the state, traveling more so than most Teachers of the Year coming from Mullen, but she'll be traveling the state, talking to students, prospective students, and current teachers. She'll also represent Nebraska at the National Teacher of the Year at events and different outings there as well. So without further ado, let me introduce the 2026 Nebraska Teacher of the Year, Sarah Hardin.
Thank you. See if this works the first time. Okay, well, I realized there was a story of a box last year. I did not bring owl pellets. I was afraid maybe we would be concerned about that, so I wanted to get that out there right away. Thank you, David. So I'm going to jump right into the real reason that I am here, which I think is the most important factor. And if you will notice the picture on the screen, this was a moment in one of my extensions of my classroom, which is the new geothermal greenhouse. It was just completed a few months ago. And this was one of those moments as an educator that you step back and think, wow, this is it. This is why I'm here. This is why I'm in this room. This is why all of you are here. And this was a group of my senior students. One afternoon, the first grade students had asked to come see the new geothermal greenhouse and plant their own plant. And so this was my students leading around quite proudly the first grade class and showing them all the different things, explaining how the greenhouse works and talking to them about how they can watch their plant grow and they can come up and be part of that experience as well. And that's the moment as a teacher you sit back and go, this is why I'm here. This is why everything that we do is worth it. And I think that's the most important thing for me to point out right off the bat before I kind of tell my story today about why I do what I do. So, two of those things that I think are really important in my classroom are when students walk in, I want them to feel like they belong in science, that there's a purpose, that it's about building a deeper understanding of the natural world, and we do that by doing things. So I think for most of my students, they would learn really well when they can apply what we learn to a real world situation. So those are my two main philosophies in my classroom. If you've heard my story, I did not ever want to be a teacher, and I think I probably would have been quite horrified as a child if I would have said I'm going to be in school the rest of my life. That was not something I thought I would do. So I went to O'Neill Public Schools, graduated, and wanted to be a park ranger. Always loved science, but I always also loved working with kids. I just didn't really think of that. And so I went to the University of Nebraska at Kearney, studied biology, and quickly realized maybe the feasibility of being a park ranger in Nebraska wasn't there. So I studied agricultural biology and then met and fell in love and moved to the Sandhills of Nebraska after graduation and got a job as a banker. So not a lot of science, but I did well, and I moved up fairly quickly. I was making, a nice wage as a young adult, but wasn't really fulfilled. It just wasn't my fit, and I didn't know it. But I was fortunate in that the superintendent lived across the street. He knocked on our door one Sunday out of desperation and said to my husband, "I heard you have a science degree, and would you want to be a teacher?" And instead he turned to me and said, "Well, she has a science degree. Maybe she would want to be a teacher." So 2 weeks later, I went up to the school. I had quit my job at the bank and said, "Oh, let me see the schedule," and had an interview with the superintendent and the current teacher and accepted the job. So that is how I became a teacher. After that, I decided to, I had to get my transitional license then, so I started the program at UNK, went straight to the classroom, and quickly realized I missed science, so I also started my master's in biology just to build better science content. Since then, I've become a National Geographic certified educator, as well as a NASA Endeavor STEM certified teacher. So this year, I teach a variety of classes. I'm in a very small school, and if you're familiar with small schools, that's very common. So this year, I teach 2 required classes: freshman physical science, a junior level earth science, and then to my students that maybe don't love science, I teach a standard science class, which I started years ago specifically for those students, and it's all project-based learning, no tests, no quizzes. Botany was started this year. It's in our geothermal greenhouse. That was some of the students that you saw in the picture. And then I teach Chemistry 1, Chemistry 2 through Nebraska Wesleyan, as well as Advanced Biology through Nebraska Wesleyan for dual credit. One of the other really important things, I think, is involvement. And of course, again, small schools, you wear many, many hats. So currently, I do a variety of different things. One of those that I'm very passionate about is STEM Club. About 8 years ago, we started STEM Club. When I say we, it was the technology teacher and my other half, the science department. And we noticed a trend in our students that was a little concerning to us, and that was there were so many requirements for reading and math that there was less time for science. So as they came up to the high school, they really hadn't done much science, and that made us kind of sad. They weren't excited for our classes. So 4th through 6th grade every month, for about 8 years now, we have had an after-school program, and it is very popular, and it tests us as high school teachers to work with 4th through 6th grade. It's very difficult, but it's very rewarding and very fun. And then every year in March, if you'll notice, the top photo is a whole bunch of people in the gym. That is our family STEM night, where we work with K through 6th grade and their families, and we do all kinds of STEM stations. And just added yesterday, and I'm going to try to get this right, 2 of our elementary teachers asked to meet the Tenet 5 literacy requirements. They are going to have a STEM, at our STEM night, they're going to have a literacy table as well. So we thought that was really great to be able to incorporate that into our program. I also assistant track coach. I take field trips for 12 years now. We've gone to Florida. We're going to try Alaska this year, something a little different. That's the bottom right picture that you'll see. I'm part of the leadership committee on our CIP team, curriculum committee. I coordinate blood drives for the Red Cross. And because I met my term limit, I am now, instead of president of our association, I am the treasurer. So everybody has a role. And one of the other important things I wanted to point out today is how this role is going to also tie in to my volunteer position as an EMT. I have been an EMT longer than I have been a teacher. And in my capacity as an EMT, I'm also the recruitment officer for our small squad. The picture, obviously the COVID pandemic was unprecedented for EMTs as well as for educators. And one of the things that we realized is our volunteer squad was becoming smaller and smaller. And unfortunately, educational opportunities for EMT classes are very limited. So last year, we piloted a program within our squad with the state of Nebraska to do a distance learning style class for EMS. And because of my Teacher of the Year honor, next month I will help teach paramedics how to effectively teach over that mode. So I'm very excited to cross over those two things. So how does this tie into what I want to do this year? My three really passions for my classroom are creating a space for all learners, preparing them not only for careers in science, but also just life in general and having a deeper understanding of that natural world. And so we do a lot of hands-on learning. So I brought with me today, just for you to get a true understanding of what my classroom looks like, some pictures, my physics course, creating medieval devices and having competitions. One of the most rewarding things for me is the student on the picture on the left with our ballistas. The student that's on the right is actually from Hyannis Public Schools, and my former student was their physics teacher, and so we brought our two classes together and had a competition. And then some of the other things that we do, lots of hands-on things. And probably the most popular, which my students would be really disappointed if I didn't mention, is our cardboard boat races the last week of school. This was the winning team from last year, so again, they would be disappointed if I didn't mention them. And then our two principals thought last year they could build a better boat, and it didn't work out very well for them. So there's a few more hands-on. So my focus this year, support and encourage learning that's hands-on and relevant to all students, whatever class we teach, create classrooms where every student belongs. And finally, I would not be here if I hadn't received the knock on the door. And what an incredible opportunity it has given me to find my passion. And I think that's important for me to talk about in this time of teacher shortages, and especially in areas like mine where one teacher might be the entire department. So if you can't fill that position, that really concerns me. And of course, I couldn't not mention my family, my husband, Shelby, and our two sons, Ethan and Brandon. So thank you so much. I am highly honored to be able to represent educators in the state. And I also think the work that all of us do is so very important. And I hope that all of you get moments such as those that I've shown you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Board members, any questions or comments?
President Tegmeyer.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Sarah, I just want to mention that I hope that you get a chance to speak to, you'll be speaking to a lot of teachers, and I hope that you encourage them because I think they need encouragement, but also that you can teach to non-teachers to promote the transition certificates. And I had jotted that down when you were talking about the transition certificates because I think there's so many people out there that would make awesome teachers that don't know that's even a possibility. They don't even think about it. So I would hope that you would have a chance to encourage that. And thank you if you do.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a piece of that is also, I didn't even know that was an option. And I had no idea the science position was open. So even encouraging that communication, that's an option for people. Yes.
Great. Well, thanks so much for coming, and safe travels back to the Sandhills.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
So back to Dr. Maher.
Well, thank you, Sarah. We're excited to get to know you even better. I feel like I do after your presentation today. So thanks so much. Sarah showed a picture of her family. I'll just add to you that not only have I had a chance to meet her husband and her sons, but her parents were at the presentation in December, and so was her grandmother. So we've seen quite the extended family. Again, congratulations, thank you, and really appreciate the presentation. Well, today is day 3 of the legislature. We've already begun our work meeting with senators and their staff, tracking legislation and analyzing impact. On the legislative front, just a few quick updates. First, I briefed the executive committee on our internal meeting cadence and propose to continue to meet with the executive committee each week to discuss upcoming bills and consult on potential department stances, if any. We'll work with President Tegmeyer on that process and how we will communicate back to the full board as we proceed through the session. In preparation for the legislative session, our team was very busy during the out-of-session period. We participated in several interim studies. We met with a number of senators and staff, and we met with other educational stakeholders to understand any potential legislation and its impact on the Department of Education. My final legislative update is that the NDE has been invited to provide a briefing to the legislators early next week on a series of topics. As a matter of fact, that'll be on Tuesday morning. Specifically, we'll be highlighting information about the state board and your authority as outlined in the Constitution. We'll briefly highlight the strategic plan and your priorities, our priorities, over the next 5 years. We'll discuss the School Financing Review Commission. We'll share some updates on school finance, and more generally, we'll provide an update on teacher vacancies and our efforts in that area. And then finally, we'll answer any questions that senators may have of us as well. So those are the topics that we'll be discussing next Tuesday with the members of the legislature. My final item in the report today is to provide an update on our literacy efforts. For that, I ask Deputy Commissioner Jane Stavum and NDE's Literacy Officer Jamie Cook to share some updates. I also asked Victoria Katzberg to please come with them.
Good morning, everybody. Jane Stavum, Deputy Commissioner. I'm going to kick things off. Allison Denbesty would also be up here, but she was not able to join us today. It's a great opportunity for me to just recognize the work that many are doing in the area of literacy across our state. And really what we're finding is we're kind of beginning to see some of the excitement and some of the tangible evidence, both anecdotally as well as some of the beginning data and information that we collect. And so it's a great opportunity as we start the second part of a school year to just give the board an update and share some of that good news, and to anticipate the rest of the year and some of the excitement that we'll continue to hear. You even heard it this morning in the presentation of how literacy is permeating many different things that our school districts are doing. They're becoming very creative, and really we all know that what gets prioritized, gets recognized, and gets implemented often to a higher degree, and that's our hope. I would also say that as we continue this work, we're continuing to try to add great clarity, because there have been a number of initiatives that have been put in motion, and Jamie will share some of that just as reminders this morning. But we want to be very clear about our goals for reading and literacy across our state. And as we do that, we think about it from the classroom all the way through leadership. What is it that we want every teacher to be doing? What is it that we want every principal to be doing? What is it we want every superintendent to be doing? And what do we want our school boards even to be doing in support of that work? And so continuing to add clarity as we watch this work unfold. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie Cook for your update.
Good morning, Jamie Cook, Literacy Officer. I'm joined here with Victoria Katzberg. She's our Literacy Program Specialist, and we are really excited, as Dr. Stavum mentioned, to share some early signs of literacy progress from Nebraska's Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant, and highlight our statewide literacy supports as well. So before we begin, I think it's important to ground ourselves in our literacy vision and goals, as well as our statutory requirements that all connect this work. So we begin with Nebraska's literacy vision and goals, which is to develop proficient lifelong readers that's based in evidence-based instruction, while strengthening the systems that prepare and support our educators in those literacy practices. Nebraska revised state statute charges the Department of Education with developing a professional learning system with early childhood programs that are approved by the state board and approved and accredited schools required to ensure that educators and children of age 4 through grade 3 are aware of the system and adequately trained. Our statewide literacy vision and the statutory responsibilities and requirements directly connect to the work of Nebraska's CLSD grant. Just a reminder that CLSD is just one lever we have moving our vision into action across the state. As a reminder, the NDE was awarded the CLSD grant back in October. From there, the NDE began building the infrastructure necessary to implement and manage the CLSD grant, including creating the Office of Literacy, completing hiring, and developing the request for application process. In August, the board, you all approved CLSD funds for 46 subgrantees, which represents about 2/3 of our state and impacts about 200,000 children. Year 1 concluded on September 30th, and Year 2 is currently underway. As a reminder, the purpose of our CLSD grant is to strengthen the literacy development for all children birth through grade 12 by investing in evidence-based literacy practices, building educator and leader capacity, and creating sustainable systems that ultimately improve student outcomes over time. During the application process, our subgrantees completed a literacy needs assessment and selected CLSD strategies that were aligned to their local needs. Strategies that could have been selected are professional learning, instructional materials, literacy-focused school improvement, family literacy. Each of our subgrantees' implementation plan is tailored and focused to their individual needs. Across our CLSD sites, subgrantees are engaging in science of reading aligned professional learning, adopting standards aligned instructional materials, strengthening their school-wide literacy systems, and expanding family literacy opportunities. Our subgrantees submit bi-monthly reports detailing their implemented strategies and outcomes, which then guides our support for our subgrantees or support across the state. It also helps us elevate highly effective practices that are happening and also meets our federal reporting requirements that we have. Our next few slides include early glimmers. We know that this work is just getting started. As I mentioned, the board approved our subgrantees funds August 11th. So when we think about it, this work, our examples of impact reflect about 3 months of work. So we have a long way to go, but there are some really great glimmers that are showing up. So the most recent bi-monthly report was in November. Our subgrantees' next bi-monthly report will be at the end of this month. So from that November bi-monthly report, CLSD funds are positively impacting literacy instruction by investing in educator, professional learning, and building leadership capacity. Over 2,400 educators and leaders are engaged in professional learning that is aligned to the science of reading. In this professional learning, teachers have reported significant growth in both their knowledge and confidence to use those evidence-based literacy practices, such as phonemic awareness activities, explicit phonics instruction, vocabulary building, language comprehension routines, building background knowledge. In the early literacy professional learning, readiness to apply these skills increased from 60% to 87% after the professional learning took place. In adolescent literacy, so when we think about literacy for students grade 4 and up, post-training scores averaged 96%, showing a strong confidence and understanding of evidence-based practices and confidence in being able to implement those practices in the classroom. So while this is not necessarily student outcome data, these results are a critical leading indicator. When we think about achieving the goal of 75% of third grade students proficient on the NSCAS, that requires high quality instruction in front of our students every single day. So these pre and post assessment results for those subgrantees that have engaged in professional learning from teachers show progress in strengthening instructional quality and building educator capacity and confidence, which are key actions towards improving literacy outcomes. Educators consistently report that these literacy learning experiences are high quality, relevant, and immediately applicable. So that builds a shared understanding and driving consistency in literacy across our CLSD sites. Early student impact is also really promising. Remember, we're 3 months in, so it is very early. But again, those glimmers, our subgrantees are reporting accelerated growth and fewer students identified as high risk, along with increased levels of student engagement, 10% increase, and student confidence in their ability to see themselves as a reader. So we have an example to share from a district that is part of our CLSD grant. One district is using CLSD grant funds to support 30 second grade students who are identified as at risk. Instruction and coaching focused on literacy, accuracy, and confidence, while teachers were coached and provided feedback that stayed aligned with grade level materials. In just 8 weeks, those 30 students improved their reading fluency by an average of 32 words read correctly, which is double the expected growth, and accuracy increased to nearly 98%. So it wasn't just about how fast they read, but it was about understanding and the automaticity of recognizing the words that they were reading quickly. Those same students moved from higher risk categories into lower or no risk ranges based on their weekly progress monitoring data. There are similar stories that are emerging across our CLSD sites. In another district, kindergarten students below the screener threshold decreased by 13% from fall to winter, reducing the need for individual reading improvement plans, and second graders in that same district saw a 7% decrease. These examples continue to illustrate how these CLSD investments are driving measurable gains in early literacy and overall strengthening instructional quality. Classroom observations also confirm these data points too. You'll see at the bottom of the screen the IPG, which is the Instructional Practice Guide. That is a walkthrough tool that our leaders and coaches use to monitor instruction and provide feedback. Through that data, we are seeing a stronger use of grade level text in classroom, deeper levels of questioning, and feedback that is aligned to those effective literacy instruction. Family literacy is also showing early signs of momentum. We have one subgrantee that distributed over 1,000 literacy kits to families in their district, and many others have hosted well-attended literacy events, which we heard about some literacy events earlier. Family feedback also shows stronger home reading routines, increased student motivation, and greater confidence in supporting literacy. In one district, students logged over 44,000 minutes of reading in a single month. So overall, rising motivation to read at home and growing interest from families and additional modeling of literacy strategies and those literacy events reflect our families' increasing confidence in literacy in the home. Overall, subgrantees report that CLSD funding has made professional learning, coaching, and instructional support possible in ways that districts and ESUs wouldn't otherwise be able to do. We feel strongly that these early results affirm that those strategic evidence-based investments are accelerating progress and ultimately strengthening our literacy outcomes, but we know that we have additional time to confirm those. So, a frequent question that is asked is, how are districts not funded through CLSD being supported in Nebraska's literacy work? And the answer to that question is through the Nebraska Literacy Project, which was developed in response to the revised state statute, and it provides statewide access to high-quality resources and guidance for all of our districts. CLSD serves as an accelerator to that work, while the Nebraska Literacy Project ensures every district has the support and guidance. The Nebraska Literacy Project was organized around 5 interconnected tenets, which, as I mentioned, align to the revised state statute. And our tenant leads meet weekly to ensure coherence and alignment statewide throughout the tenant work. There have been some key statewide supports that have come out of this tenant work, and some of those include the professional learning rubric, which was developed with our Nebraska Literacy Advisory Panel, which provides NDE guidance on what it means for educators to be adequately trained, as well as provides a framework for our districts to use regardless of funding. Additional supports include expanding the regional literacy coach network to all of our ESUs by July of this year, continuing collaboration and strengthening partnerships with our educator preparation programs, and finally supporting family literacy and increasing supports for in the home. And to tie all of this together, we are excited about our new and updated Nebraska Reads website, because that really serves as a central hub for our resource and support. Together, all of these efforts create a more aligned and sustainable statewide literacy system. So Nebraska's literacy work, as I mentioned, is showing early signs of progress. There's still a lot of work to do and a long way to go, but aligning our literacy vision, statutory requirements, CLSD implementation, and our statewide supports are really strengthening instruction, supporting our educators, and ultimately leading us towards our goal of improving student outcomes. This work is absolutely meaningful. Momentum is strong across the state, and we feel strongly that Nebraska is well positioned to continue advancing towards its literacy goals. So thank you for the time today to share some updates. Any questions that you might have?
Does anyone, Lisa? Yes, I love all of the background information on it, so thank you all so much for being here. Yeah. What was the district, which district is it that logged 44,000 minutes?
I don't have that particular district, but I can find it and email it to you,
I would
yes.
love to give them props. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
There's nothing that I want to see more than kids bringing home books and reading.
Yes.
And then my other question was, do we have this PowerPoint?
You will have it.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sherry?
I do. Jamie, I don't know if you have information on this. I appreciate what you shared from like birth through 12th grade kind of information. I'm just kind of wondering, how are we assisting or supporting and engaging the educator preparation programs in this?
Yeah,
are we doing that?
Yeah, great question. So we have spent last year working with our educator preparation programs. Each of our 16 EPPs completed a self-assessment on where they were at with science of reading coursework, where that falls in their syllabi. We have updated rule guidance around our EPPs that include requirements for science of reading and evidence-based literacy instruction in pre-service programs. So moving forward, we're continuing those conversations, diving deeper into the coursework to ensure that when our pre-service teachers come out of our EPPs, that they have the foundational skills that they need to go into classrooms and confidently teach reading instruction. So we'll continue to have those conversations. We've provided each of our EPPs with very specific feedback based on their assessment. So NDE reviewed that and provided feedback to them. So we'll follow up and continue that work.
Good. I just believe that if we do well in the education preparation programs, we'll need less professional development down the road. So I think that's such a key, and thank you for working with them.
Yeah.
Any further questions or comments?
I do.
Okay, Kirk.
So you mentioned the Nebraska Literacy Project. So of the 245 school districts, how many do not qualify for the CLSD grants?
So 168 do qualify.
Do, okay.
I don't do math on the spot.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. That's it, that's it.
Great.
That's a different way to get there.
Perfect.
Okay. And I just, you know, I think when this first rolled out, we accepted the grant funds, nobody really knew. It was sort of nebulous and out there, vague. And so I really hope that we continue to see opportunities for all teachers throughout the state. And I'm going to say it over and over, and you're going to think that's all I care about, but it is. I want every teacher to have the opportunity to get trained in evidence-based reading instruction, that direct instruction to students. And so I'm hopeful that rolling out the regional literacy coaches will provide that so that all of our districts and teachers can get trained, so all students have that same quality of instruction. So thank you, and I'll be looking forward to hearing how non-grant recipient district teachers are receiving that training. Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner?
I'll close this portion of my comments with this, that we will keep our eye on the prize. There's a lot going on here. And when we talk about how we're just a few months into this, I recognize for many of us, we're about 15 months into this since we really first heard about it. But in terms of the rubber hitting the road, student outcomes, we're just beginning to see the fruit of our labor, I think, in that particular area. There are a couple of things that make me feel real good. One is the information on students going from higher risk to lower risk. That's some of the first evidence we see that student outcomes are where they need to be. And then to take a piece of the conversation that our Teacher of the Year had when Mrs. Harden talked about they have teachers who are going to address Tenet 5 at Mullen. I thought the conversation is where it needs to be from a systemic standpoint. So we're really getting to where we need to be. That was a great piece of the conversation. But more importantly, and I too want to see teachers trained and trained well, because as I mentioned frequently, the magic happens in the classroom. It doesn't happen here. It doesn't happen in the superintendent's office. It doesn't happen in the principal's office. While I believe all of those spaces are very important, the true magic happens between the teacher and the student. And I want to see those student outcomes. And I recognize that training teachers is part of that ultimate student outcome. But we will keep our eye on that prize. So well done. Thank you to our presenters here today. And that concludes my report. Oh, that doesn't quite conclude my report. 6.3.A, item 6.3.A, has been pulled from the consent agenda and will be added under additional business. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have no president's report today. And we have nobody signed up from public comment, and there is also no written comment. So we are on agenda item 6. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda? There's nothing on it. Oh, without 6.3A. So I need a motion to adopt the consent agenda without 6.3.A.
I move to adopt the consent agenda without 6.3.A.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda without 6.3.A. Per board policy, there's no discussion on the motion to adopt the consent agenda. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Renner, Douglas,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the consent agenda is adopted. The next items of business are the reports of the standing committees. I will report on behalf of the Executive Committee. The Executive Committee reports on its January 8th, 2026 meeting. Members present were Chair Elizabeth Tegmeyer, Vice Chair Deborah Neary, Sherry Jones, and Liz Renner. The committee reviewed 4 information items. First, the committee received an update on TIOSA business rules and processes. Next, the committee received an update from NDE staff on implementation of the strategic plan. The committee and board will continue to receive regular updates on the strategic plan. Then NDE staff provided a review of prior year processes for board engagement during the legislative session. The executive committee will meet weekly throughout the duration of the legislative session and provide direction to the commissioner. Finally, the committee reviewed a proposed schedule for the 2026 board meeting dates, which will be set soon and shared with the board and public. This concludes the executive committee report. Elizabeth Tegmeyer, Chair. Are there any questions on the executive committee report? Okay. Agenda item 7.2. Chair Kristen Christensen will report on the Budget and Finance Committee meeting.
The Budget and Finance Committee reports that at its Thursday, January 8th meeting, members present were Kristen Christensen, Maggie Douglas, Kirk Penner, and Lisa Schoenhoff. The committee reviewed 3 action items. The first item reviewed was to approve a potential contract with the OCIO's Office for federally required IDEA and early childhood data reporting systems. The committee recommends approval of this item. The second action item reviewed was to approve the 2025-26 trust fund budget for the Nebraska Center for the Education of Children Who Are Blind or Visually Impaired, or NCEC-BVI. The committee recommends approval of this item. Next, the committee reviewed a potential contract for the Nebraska Inclusive Systems Capacity Project to codify ongoing learning and strengthen the internal systems needed to support districts effectively. The committee recommends approval of this item. The committee then reviewed 1 discussion item for board member travel expenses, noting no concerns. Last, the committee reviewed 4 information items, including an update on a potential contract renewal to build out a data collection process to meet federal post-school outcome data reporting requirements, a potential subcontract for preschool development grant funds to fulfill grant requirements, an update on the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant expenditures, 2 new grants related to school mental health, and an update on the TIOSA calculation process. This concludes the Budget and Finance Committee report. Kristen Christensen, Chair.
Are there any questions on the Budget and Finance Committee report? Are there any questions on the reports in item 7.2.A? Is there a motion on item 7.2.B?
Yes, I move to authorize the Commissioner to contract for federal IDEA and early childhood data application development.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to authorize the Commissioner to contract for federal IDEA and early childhood data application development. Is there any discussion on the motion? The motion is to authorize the Commissioner to contract for federal IDEA and early childhood data application development. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Renner, Douglas,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to authorize the Commissioner to contract for federal IDEA and early childhood data application development is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.2.C?
Yes, I move to authorize the commissioner to contract for the Nebraska Inclusive Systems Capacity Project.
Second. It is moved and seconded to authorize the commissioner to contract for the Nebraska Inclusive Systems Capacity Project. Is there any discussion on the motion? The motion is to authorize the commissioner to contract for the Nebraska Inclusive Systems Capacity Project. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Christensen,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Renner, Douglas,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to authorize the commissioner to contract for the Nebraska Inclusive Systems Capacity Project is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.2.d?
Yes, I move to authorize the commissioner to approve the 2025-26 trust fund budget for the NCEC BVI.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to authorize the commissioner to approve the 2025-26 trust fund budget for the NECC BVI. Is there any discussion on the motion? Yes, Lisa.
I just want to thank Amy Rohn for telling us more about the school. It's located in Nebraska City, and it's definitely one that's on my list of getting out to see. The agency spends a lot of money on VR, which is vocational rehabilitation, correct? And it's definitely an area that I don't know a whole lot about, and so I'm looking forward to going with Amy to visit. Thank you.
The motion is to authorize the commissioner to approve the 2025-26 trust fund budget for the NCEC BVI. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Jones,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Renner, Douglas,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to authorize the commissioner to approve the 2025-26 trust fund for the NCEC BVI is adopted. Chair Lisa Schoenhoff will report on behalf of the Planning and Evaluation Committee meeting.
Good morning. The Planning and Evaluation Committee reports on the committee meeting on January 8th, 2026. The members present were Lisa Schoenhoff, Sherry Jones, Deborah Neary, and Kristen Christensen. The committee reviewed one action item related to the Community Achievement Plan of the Learning Community of Douglas and Sarpy Counties. The committee recommends no action on this item. The committee reviewed informational items related to the contract for general and alternate statewide assessment services and the priority school designation process update. NDE staff will bring these items to a future meeting for discussion and subsequent approval where appropriate. This concludes the Planning and Evaluation report.
Are there any questions on the Planning and Evaluation Committee report? Deb?
We're still discussing 7.3A, even if it's not an action item, right? Or do we have that discussion now?
I think that would happen now if it's not, if there's no action, we won't have a motion on that one.
Then I do want to discuss the reports.
Okay.
So I'm just going to ask my peers in the committee to speak up, because what we learned were 2 members of our committee had hesitation about supporting the plan for the learning community, and that affects the funding of all the of all the school districts involved in MOEC. And so I have asked them to share what their reservations are so that we can go forward and have a discussion, a sit down with members of the learning community and MOEC in the next month, and so that they can be prepared in advance to understand what the concerns are and why we didn't vote on the plan today. And so I think it's much better if the individuals report themselves on what their concerns are. And I know there were some notes you didn't have yesterday and you were going to bring them today. So I'm going to just start with asking those members to speak up now, and then I'll have more to comment on after that. Thank you.
Okay, anyone want to?
I can begin.
Okay, sure.
If I may. One of my reasons to want to delay a vote is to encourage other State Board of Education members that are not on the Planning and Evaluation Committee to have time to review the plan, its data, and the list of nonprofits associated with the plan. It's about 500 pages in the document, so I've been looking over it, and I could benefit from more time as well. But so I would encourage those of you four that are not on, to look through the document and then to forward some questions to Dr. Vargas, who has done a very nice job, I think, of bringing forth information. So that's probably the biggest reason I would like to delay a month for the vote. It doesn't mean I don't support the funding of it. I just want us to take a closer look at that document. And I'm going to wait to share more of my thoughts specifically until I speak with some of the superintendents of the learning community and the coordinating council members before I make more statements today. I would feel better waiting till I visit with them. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Anyone else want to comment?
As Sherry said, it's a very long document with a lot of components to it, and to vote yes on it would mean that you're voting yes on every single thing in the document. And one of my biggest hangups after attending a session on early childhood and preschool programming was the class and the DECA evaluation tools that are being used. So basically what I learned is that teachers are required to have an app or an iPad with these, a phone or an iPad with the app that is continuously tracking students' social and emotional activities throughout the day. In my opinion, and after talking with teachers, it's very distracting. It's very hard for teachers to focus on what's most important, which is being engaged with the learning that's taking place in their classrooms, because it's a constant having to mark this box, this box, this box of what is happening. And so I think there needs to be maybe more understanding on my part before I'm willing to just check the box yes on that one. I want to make sure that if we are spending these tax dollars in our preschools, we need to make sure that the learning that is happening is authentic learning and not just constantly making teachers be attached to their phones or an iPad to check everything that the kids are doing throughout the day. And so that's a huge part of the program that I would like to have more discussion on.
Kirk?
Thank you. Sherry, you mentioned 500 nonprofits or NGOs, is that right?
No pages in the document.
Okay.
But I would like you to look at the nonprofits and just study up a little bit and from now until.
Is there a listing of those somewhere within that document?
They're within the document.
Okay. Thank you.
I have more, but so we hear from everybody. First, Kristen, anything from the committee meeting you want to talk about?
The discussion yesterday was long. It probably took up most of our committee time. The part I would think I'm having a more difficult time wrapping my mind around is we've had these documents and we've had the plan We had the presentation last month, and I don't remember discussing it in length before yesterday. So it feels a little, I guess, frustrating to me when we've had time to kind of vet this and look through it and have these discussions. And then when it comes time to, now it's an action item this month, then now we're putting the brakes on and halting it when we've had time before this month to get to this point. So I guess that's kind of where my frustration lies, is if there's concerns in the document, there was time before yesterday to kind of air those with the people that they needed to be addressed with.
Thanks. Because we have to approve this by statute, and otherwise the funding doesn't become available to the school districts. They don't get the credit that they need for this work. And it's a plan that hasn't changed a whole lot. And so, you know, we have been working, not just this plan, but we've been working with the learning community forever. And so there's nothing new. I need to, just because we have to now try to find a compromise, and we need to sit down with the leaders of the learning community in MOAC, I want them to have a heads up about some of the conversations that took place yesterday so that they can start thinking about this too. But since others won't speak up and share what they shared yesterday, it's like one of the big stopping points was the fact that One World Health Center is a partner in the work. And I want to just, wasn't aware that any of this was coming forward yesterday, so I didn't have the talking points. And the reason that was given was that One World has somewhere on their website, which I couldn't find, that they support gender affirming care. And so I didn't have the words yesterday to remind our board members that every single health-based center in Omaha provides that same care. It isn't just One World. And to take that kind of whole body health approach away from students, because there wouldn't be another health center that could work as a partner. They all provide health. I had that confirmed for me this morning. There's so much research and evidence by that whole body health approach. I mean, there's research that shows grades improve, suspensions decrease, et cetera. And so that is a concern. The compromise was offered because part of the learning community plan doesn't really have anything to do with gender affirming care. The offer was on the table that we just write that into the plan, that no state funds can go towards those kinds of activities, but they aren't part of the plan anyway. But that compromise was also turned down as a reasonable. And the other things that I heard yesterday in the committee, that the social emotional learning pieces, which there's tons of evidence behind with our early childhood students, that too was a problem for one of our committee members. And I think what you're talking about, if I'm understanding, Lisa, is the just-in-time feedback approach that they use, which
Part of it.
Has tremendous, from what I did talk to a superintendent this morning, and has tremendous feedback from all of the teachers involved. And there's tons of evidence and research behind that approach. And so I have asked that we sit down, since there seems to be some misunderstanding, and I know Lisa had some other research that she wanted to present, and maybe she can send that to the learning community in advance of our meeting so that they can, just understand. I want to be fair to them and let them understand what's at stake here. I don't really, I mean, it's to take all of these things out of the work that's been happening for at least, the last 10, 15 years. without, just at the ninth hour, as Kristen pointed out, when we've had months to review all this and talk about this, causes me quite a bit of frustration too. But I wanted my friends associated with these organizations to be able to understand what the concerns were that were approached yesterday, so that they can help us come to some kind of agreement on this. And I was hoping so that we could know where we're at before we even go meet with the learning community. I mean, I'd love to hear from the people that weren't in that committee meeting, so that we can register any concerns that you might have now that you've heard a little bit about what the discussion was, so that we can really go to the learning community and say, this percentage of the board has an issue or doesn't have an issue, if that makes any sense. Because to make major compromises when only 2 board members have concerns is different than if 5 board members have concerns. And so I'm hoping that everyone will speak up at this time, so that those of us that are going to be involved in negotiating with the learning community know, and that Dr. Maher can represent your thoughts.
Would you like to go next? I do have a few questions for Dr. Vargas, but would you?
This is just a follow-up. You mentioned research and data 3 times. I'd like to see that data and who it comes from, because you can skew any data any way you want. And so that will go a long way into, you can ask me whether I'm going to answer it or not. I'm just asking that the research and data, that we hear it a lot from you. There's research, all the experts, show us the data, show us the research, let us know who's doing it. And I think that would go a long way in everything the next year.
May I just clarify? And happy to have people send you whatever you want. Yeah. Will you just tell me specifically what part that you wanted research and data on? Because I talked about a whole lot of things. So if it's the success of the learning community, or if it's, just thank you.
You have to go back and listen to the board meeting of the 3 times you mentioned research and data. I can't remember. I just counted numbers.
Dr. Vargas, could you come up? So I'm just clarifying, I'm not on this committee, so I have not been privy to these conversations. So I do have a few questions. They won't be particularly hard, I don't think. But also, as an aside, while Dr. Vargas gets settled, this is why we discussed in exec, like, what if we had even fewer meetings? And it's like, because we have 500 pages in some documents to read, and so if we have even fewer board meetings, that time frame from Thursday when the agenda is released until you come here, it's almost impossible to read through all of that. So that's an aside that we discussed in exec. Dr. Vargas, I appreciated the learning community. I'm saying that right? The learning community coming last month so that we could learn about them. I'm a little, I guess I'm not quite steady here. I thought we were approving the plan and that the funding is already earmarked by the legislature. Can you help me understand how they may be intertwined into this board decision?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Shirley Vargas, School Transformation Officer. My role also exists as a Student Achievement Coordinator, which is written in statute and is the role that is designed to be a liaison with the learning community, of which there's only one. There's only one learning community, and that's the Douglas and Sarpy County's learning community. The Community Achievement Plan functions as a mechanism to allow Community Achievement Plan aid that's part of the state aid calculation to flow to districts. The plan itself is a mechanism also to ensure that the districts are collaborating with one another, as that is a requirement by the statute that undid a common levy that was previously the funding piece that was happening many, many years ago. So things like the superintendent's early childhood plan was actually in effect prior to the community achievement plan, but it was one of the things that was brought into this community achievement plan. So the board's action here really is to ensure that the participating districts of the learning community receive part of their funding for their operation as part of their state aid calculation.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I made a note, listen to this again later. So,
Okay.
because I started to write down what you said, and I'm just going to listen again and listen.
Yep.
So I have another question then. I need to understand this. What is the impact of not voting on this today?
So
on the programming, or on the current programming that's being offered, can you help me understand that impact?
So a non-vote on the item today would just mean that you would have maybe one more month to consider the plan, because the state aid has to be certified by March 1st. So again, the community achievement plan is solely a mechanism that allows state funding to be calculated, or the portion of the statement to be calculated that goes to the participating districts of a learning community.
So I'm sorry, I'm asking questions
please.
like I'm 5, because I want to
No,
be really clear on this.
Yes, understood.
So what you're saying is, if this action is not approved, it will impact the state aid funding that flows to these programs.
I would like for you to finish and then I can clarify.
Clarify.
Yeah, so it does not fund the programs. It's funding to the districts.
And then the districts contribute to the program?
Maybe it's possible the learning community does receive funding from so then that's a separate conversation or a separate question around the funding structure of the learning community. The community achievement plan solely signals to those that make all these calculations that there is an approved plan, and now this funding can be released to the local school districts.
Okay. So what I think to conclude my time with you, but I see Maggie's got a finger up too. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down and talk with you more at length so that I can better understand this for myself.
Perfect.
Maggie. Oh, let me turn.
Thanks. Thank you, Dr. Vargas. I just want to clarify kind of off of you. So first, I like the learning community, I'm familiar with it, and specifically to One World, I have seen a lot of the great work that they've done in communities. So I'm curious about, like with One World specifically, they provide services they would not be getting state aid funding. They already have their own financial infrastructure. Is that right?
I am not in the position to speak specifically about that, but what I can say is that the cap in itself is not necessarily about funding going to specific programs or entities.
Strictly district. Okay.
Strictly the district.
Thank you.
Can I answer a little bit of what your question? So one of the things I learned this morning from the superintendent I talked to is that, the MOAC area, all of those school districts have, almost all of them, I think, have school-based health centers, which One World is one of the main providers, because there's a ton of research behind the whole body health approach, especially for children in poverty that aren't going to get these services without these school-based health centers. And these are funded primarily through private donations and federal dollars. And so they actually save our school districts a lot of money, because kids that are coming to school with whatever the health issue is, we all understand what the attendance, chronic absenteeism problem is. And so to be able to take care of these students, and it isn't just the students that are taken care of, it's the whole family that can get services. And so there really is. I was around Building Bright Futures when we launched those 15 years ago or whatever it was. I don't know how many there are in place now, but it really saves tax dollars because that is there with private dollars being used. And this is a rhetorical question, I don't need an answer, but, this whole discussion, just because I've spent so much of my career focused on poverty issues, and I heard yesterday that, to take away the health centers part because they provide gender-affirming care, and I just wanted to ask, and again, this is rhetorical, I don't want answers, everyone can think about it themselves, but I mean, if you or your partner or your children needed care that could only be provided at the medical center, I mean, would you take away that care from them because the med center provides these same services? And that's for you to decide, and if you would, then that's whatever. But taking away services that really are, 15 years of data is there, and I'm just saying to take away these services to poor people when we wouldn't take them away from ourselves just because we don't like that a health center is providing gender-affirming care. That is something that keeps me awake at night. So anyway, thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Dr. Vargas? Lisa? Oh, okay. And I do want to adhere to Robert's rules. So we'll hear now just from people who haven't spoken.
Okay.
Lisa? Per Robert's rules, speak twice and then the discussion. So if you've spoken twice, I'm going to ask you to refrain. If you haven't, or if you have a question, go ahead.
So I need to get everything in on this second time.
Pretty
So
much.
I do have a question for you, but I'm going to
yeah.
save that for the end because I want to respond. So I know it's probably hard to believe, but I try to avoid super hot topics. But get your microphones ready because here it comes. I first off want to say, Kristen, I agree. It's hard when we have to delay a vote when it means that it's potentially not going to get get the services to the kids. But that's not the case here, from what I'm understanding. And it is a lot of pages, and part of my compromise was saying, sure, we can hold off on voting at all until we have more information, because I was ready to vote based on my hours of looking into every single detail here. And what I can say is there's a lot of really great things in the plan. I love the parent university. Boom, that is awesome. I would love to see more about that because they're helping parents get their GEDs. I think that's phenomenal. I think that's probably getting more engagement and lowering chronic absenteeism. I think there's so many great things. I don't think constant evaluation and tracking of preschoolers' social and emotional health is healthy. I just read a research study on the relationship between overly analyzing and self-reflecting and how it can actually contribute to higher rates of anxiety and depression. And so why are we starting that at pre-K? It's too much. It's far too much. I don't think it's healthy, and I can't get on board with that piece. The other piece that you keep bringing up, and I'm not trying to call anyone out, but here's the deal. When you look on the website, One World Community Health Centers, West Omaha, there's a lot of great things. There is. In partnership with the community, provides culturally respective quality health care with special attention to the underserved. awesome. I think every single person in this room cares about the underserved. And I think it's very combative to imply that we don't. Adult and family medicine, behavioral health, dental, awesome. LGBTQ+, great. Physical and mental health care, great, awesome. My hang up is this, because this is child abuse in my mind, and I won't attach my name to it. Hormone therapy and medical transition assistance for transgender individuals. Our kids are minors, and what happens is a slippery slope, because you see it in states like Washington. You start with that, and then it becomes behind the parent's back. Now, 13-year-olds no longer have to have parent permission to get this done. So am I going to attach my name to this? Absolutely not. Was that my hang-up? No. The hang-up that I have is that is one of my hang-ups, don't get me wrong, but my biggest hang-up is tracking constantly every move of our preschoolers. That is not okay. I won't put my name on it. And that doesn't make your vote or my vote better. My vote is based on my constituents, and your vote is based on yours. I don't have any desire to argue back and forth on it.
Right. Anyone else? Questions for Dr. Vargas? Anyone who hasn't spoken and wants to?
I forgot. See, then after all that, I forgot. So what is the half-cent levy? What is the final amount of all of this? It seems like that would be a lot, and that's something that we should be taking very seriously.
Dr. Vargas, would you like us to have Bryce Wilson come up?
Is he?
He's always here.
Oh, sure. I was going to clarify a question, but my colleague
You
can
want to
definitely
phone
come
a
up.
friend?
Sure. Thanks.
It's not that I don't think you're qualified, but sometimes
No,
we just
there's
need to
someone
just
here.
get to the guy who knows all the numbers.
Good morning, Bryce Wilson, Finance Officer. I think it's on.
Yeah.
Okay. Question again?
I have yet to figure out the half-cent levy on property values, because even though we're not voting on the number of dollars being spent, I think it's in a very important piece to keep in mind. So what does that equal for Sarpy and Douglas counties?
How many dollars can they raise with their levy authority? Is that the question?
I'm just trying to understand how is all of this funded?
So, I mean, the learning community funding comes from a lot of different places, but part of that funding is they have the half-cent levy authority, which is applied to all of the valuation that is within the learning community. So their half-cent can be applied, up to a half-cent can be applied to the full valuation of all the school districts that are the valuation that's considered part of the learning community. So I don't know if that answers that question. They also get funding from legislature as part of a single payment that comes every September, and then funding through the issue core service formula, as well as then funding from school districts as well.
So we don't really actually have a number on how much all of this
We
costs.
do. The learning community has to submit an annual financial report to us. I don't have that in front of me right now, but they every year are required to submit and have an audit, just like school districts and ESUs. They also have to have an audit and submit an annual financial report. I don't have that in front of me right now.
So you could send that out to any interested board member?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions?
I would appreciate that.
Actually, why don't you just send it out to all board members? Thank you. All right, anyone else who hasn't spoken on this topic and would like to? Excellent, thank you. Agenda item 7.3, the committee does recommend no action at this time. Item 7.4, Chair Maggie Douglas will report on behalf of the Rules and Regulations Committee meeting.
Yes.
Okay, the Rules and Regulations Committee reports on January 8th, 2026 meeting of the committee. Members present were Chair Maggie Douglas, Vice Chair Liz Renner, Elizabeth Tegmeyer, and Kirk Penner. Committee members reviewed the report on rules and committee report. Amy Huff explained the revisions to the report. The committee reviewed revisions to Rule 13, Regulations and Procedures for Exempting Schools for which parents elect not to meet legal requirements for school approval and accreditation. The public hearing was held on December 19th, 2025. Committee members asked if the FAQs could be revised to include guidance on filing promptly when parents are going to homeschool children. The committee, having no concerns, recommends approval. The committee reviewed revisions to Rule 51, Regulations and Standards for Special Education Programs. The public hearing was held on December 17th, 2025. The committee, having no concerns, recommends approval. NDE staff provided information on Rule 19, School Enrollment, specifically the Enrollment Option Program. The committee recommends pursuing changes to this rule. NDE staff provided comments from the public input draft on Rule 24, Regulations for Certification Endorsements, and highlighted the changes made to the endorsements. Committee members discussed the input provided and recommend proceeding with a public hearing draft. This concludes the Rules and Regulations Committee report. Maggie Douglas, Chair.
Are there any questions or comments on the Rules and Regulations Committee report? I just have a comment. As a Rules Committee member, I think our committee was very interested. Maggie mentioned Rule 19, which is option enrollment. We are very interested in walking into that space and looking at how we as the state board can clarify and help people to navigate through that process without there needing to be further legislation. So often we say, you know, we want to do our job. Well, the staff brought to us as an opportunity for us to take that initiative and clarify things and make things better for families in Nebraska. And so the committee is quite looking forward to that work, I believe. Any other comments on the committee? You don't have to, Okay, is there a motion on item 7.4.b?
I move to adopt the proposed revisions to Rule 13.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to adopt the proposed revisions to Rule 13. Is there any discussion on this motion? Maggie.
Talking a lot today, just kidding. Okay, so I will be voting yes for this, but I just wanted to share a couple concerns from constituents that I've been hearing, and I do believe that they're legislative concerns. One is a concern about educational neglect outside of the realm of mandatory reporters, and the other is the one-parent signature requirement in divorced or co-parent situations. And again, I believe these are legislative concerns, but just felt they were important to mention.
Any other questions or comments? Discussion? The motion is to adopt the proposed revisions to Rule 13. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Renner, Jones,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to adopt the proposed revisions to Rule 13 is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.4.c?
I move to adopt the proposed revisions to Rule 51.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to adopt the proposed revisions to Rule 51. Is there any discussion on the motion? Just for non-committee members, I just want to make a brief comment that that some of these, the revisions in Rule 51 were prompted by a federal report that we received. And I just want to compliment our Office of Special Education on how quickly they moved to make these changes and to come into adherence with that federal law, and how it will benefit families for the mediation changes. So it was a very fast process. I believe it was the first time we've worked with Special Ed Director Roan, and so it is very impressive to see how quickly she rolled through that rule revision process, because it's not always easy. All right, any other comments? The motion is to adopt the proposed revisions to Rule 51. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Douglas,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Renner, Jones,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to adopt the proposed revisions to Rule 51 is adopted. Item 8 is additional business. At this time, we will have item 6.3.a. Is there a motion on this item?
Yes, I move to amend the contract to support teams for improvement to increase math and literacy outcomes.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. I don't have the motion. It has been moved and seconded to amend the contract to support teams for improvement to increase math and literacy outcomes. Is there any discussion on this item? Okay, well, I pulled it, so like, nobody else had a question. So I need Dr. Vargas to come forward.
Hi again.
Hi.
Shirley Vargas, School Transformation Officer.
Thank you, Dr. Vargas. So I pulled this item because I was a little confused. Just last fall, we approved this, and I believe this was a first-time approval. Am I correct?
Yes.
For $133,000 to support 10 school teams to implement rapid cycles of improvement to increase math and literacy outcomes. I guess what I'm wondering is, what is the data on this program that we would want to double it in size? What initial data have we received?
So this is actually to increase the number of school teams that would be eligible based off of our accountability results. So the teams actually haven't begun the work just yet. We just now have received more schools that are interested in this work. What I will say, we have worked with DMG in prior years, and we have seen their results with other partnerships we've had with them and Grand Island Public Schools, as well as with other school districts that they've worked with in increasing student performance on a particular strand or content standard specifically. So I can definitely share that with you as part of the improvement grant, or now it's called, improvement program, that report that we have to submit every year to the legislature, so we have that information as well. But it's been positive experiences, and our schools have definitely shared that it's been great work with them. For this specific contract, we are going to begin that work right now. Well, we have just begun that work with 10 teams. We received more teams wanted to do it. We just didn't have the capacity to offer it to them. So we want to add 10 more.
We didn't have the capacity because you didn't have the funding approved?
At the time, yes. So we didn't have, we were going to use improvement funds, and then instead we're using general funds.
So I guess I'm just confused why this wasn't all, why the change?
I know.
Especially because typically, if we're going to change something or increase something, it's because we have the the data. I'm struggling to double in my mind, double the funding to a program that we don't have data for just because more people want to try it. So can you help me understand?
We have data from prior experiences with working with district management group. We do not have the work right now because it's actively happening in this moment. So we have some schools. The reason why we're adding more schools was because of the results that came in November for our accountability results. So that's where that additional amount came from.
So am I correct in understanding that I'm going to pull up their name again. I saw it and then it moved. The district management group has done this exact work on a smaller scale.
Previously with other school
with
teams.
other schools.
Yes.
And you're wanting to expand it because we have seen positive results.
Yes, and there is a need for some of our neediest schools to engage in this work, and this would be an opportunity for that to happen this year.
And this is just a one-year program?
Correct.
Lisa?
Okay, my question is, I thought when we put something in a consent agenda, it's a renewal, I understand that part, but how can it be that much money extra and go in the consent? I thought it had to be, because I also don't do math on the spot, Jamie, but isn't that over 50,000 more than what it was before? So if it's over 50,000, doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be? I feel like it's a little tricky for us board members to have to look through all. I missed it, so thank you, Elizabeth, for not missing it, but that's a lot of money.
Dr. Ford, can you mic on and explain that to all board members?
Lisa, would you ask your question about the dollar amount in the consent agenda again?
Yeah, I understand that the consent agenda is for renewals of contracts, but I had been under the impression that if it was over 50,000, we had to actually vote on it outside of the consent.
The board policy does not require that. There is not a dollar amount per se tied to restrictions around use of the consent agenda.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for catching that, Elizabeth.
Lisa, I think that you're thinking the 50,000, those are the contracts that come under items 9.1 and 9.2 of reports for the board. That's any contracts under 50,000. But, and the reason I pulled it is because it is a little unprecedented to renew a contract or expand a contract. We just hadn't seen something like this in such a short time. Is I was trying to figure out what happened, what changed between August and January. Any other questions or comments? Comments for the board or questions for Dr. Vargas? Thank you, Dr. Vargas. The motion is to amend the contract to support teams for improvement to increase math and literacy outcomes. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Renner, Penner,
No.
Schoenhoff,
No.
5 yes, 2 noes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to amend the contract to support teams for improvement to increase math and literacy outcomes is adopted. The next items on the agenda, items 9.1 and 9.2, are information items and written reports for the board. Agenda item 10, good of the order. This section of the agenda is intended for board members to offer informal observations of the work of the State Board. Board members may make brief announcements about attendance at future events for the purpose of informing other board members. No business or motions or suggested actions of the board may be offered at this point in the agenda, nor should board members engage in substantive discussion about other agenda items or introduce new agenda items. Would anyone like to contribute? Thank you to those who attended in person and who tuned into the broadcast. The next meetings of the State Board of Education are scheduled for February 5th and 6th, February 5th and 6th, 2026 in Lincoln, Nebraska. The January 9th, 2026 State Board meeting is adjourned.